You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing? Good. Glad you're all here. Hang on, let's all listen to that conversation. Just want to. Got it? So it's funny, how things pop into my head. It's a good thing I didn't really plan Dharma talks anyways, because then something would pop into my head and I would completely ignore what I had planned to talk about initially. So that's why I just don't plan to talk about anything initially, and it makes it a lot easier. But I had this just now as I was listening to that, and I took my glasses off, which when I take these off, I can't, you're just like a blob. Nothing personal.
I actually am.
Oh, you are a blob, yes. Thank you for playing along. You're a nice, kind blob, I'm sure. But, yes. Yeah, there you go. An even nicer one when the mask over the nose. Thank you. Appreciate it. But I just had this memory of, this would have been 17 years ago, and I know I talk about these experiences a bit just because they were, for me, very just profound and life-changing. But, there I am in Taiwan, sitting in this monastery, and everything's in Mandarin, Chinese, so I don't understand a word. And I had this experience one day where, and I don't mean experience like, some grand thing happened to me, just like, an experience like when you take a bite of pizza, about as simple as that. But it was something that I really just became aware of as I was sitting there, and I couldn't understand what was being said. Often I had translation, often I didn't. And then I had this moment where I took my glasses off like I just did. And so all of a sudden I found myself not being able to see anything except blobs, and not being able to hear anything because it was in another language. And so I had this kind of realization where I was like, wow, this is just theoretically the practice of being with an experience beyond judgment. And because I couldn't see anything, I couldn't say, well, I like the way Tom looks or I don't like the way Tom looks. I like his shirt or I don't like his shirt. I couldn't judge anything because I simply couldn't see. I couldn't judge what I was hearing because I didn't understand at the time a word of it. So it was all just like silence in a way. And then for me, that triggered back to, and some of you are familiar with the teaching in the Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra, which is really the, lack of better words, the heart of the Mahayana Buddhist practice. And it's all about the duality that we live in and the Buddhist teachings on non-duality. And in the Heart Sutra, it talks about No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or thought. No realm of the eye, all the way up to no realm of mental cognition. So that's a piece of the Heart Sutra. And what, for me, this is teaching me is that, and in specifically the Zen practice, that our entire lives are driven by our senses. Your entire day today, up to this very point, and even now, is being driven by your senses, right? You're sitting there, you're listening to me. So your ears are hearing things. And with that hearing, you're making a judgment. Do I like what he's saying? Do I dislike what he's saying? Do I agree with him? Do I not agree with him? Especially if you're here for the first time. If you're here for the first time, you're like, who is this guy and what is he talking about? If you've been around for like 7 years, you're like, oh, here's Jeff just on one of his rants. Maybe something might make sense to me, right? So we are judging everything we're hearing. We're judging everything we're seeing. And so our entire lives are, again, driven by our senses. And what that means, if you break it down even further, and this is really the foundation, the core of Buddhist teachings, is that we're driven by everything we crave and everything we desire. And everything we crave and everything we desire keeps us stuck in this wheel of just called samsara, suffering, dukkha, of where we're constantly chasing. Or if we're not chasing, we're running, right? For me, when I hear chasing, I think of like running towards something. If I hear running, I think of running away from something. We talked last Saturday, someone brought up fight or flight. And so it's very much a similar idea, is that so much of our lives is spent in the chasing towards something we don't have and we want because we think it's going to bring us a sense of happiness or joy or peace. Or running away from something that we don't like because we think if we get far enough away from it, that we'll have some sort of happiness and peace and contentment in our lives. But the practice of what's called guarding the senses is to just be with the moments as they arise and pay attention to them. But don't let them drive you. For example, anyone go out to eat ever? I've already picked on you. What's your name?
Brandon?
Brandon, like B-R-A?
Yes.
Brandon. So you got to eat once in a while?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. All right. Have you ever looked at a menu and seen something on it and said, this looks terrible, and then ordered it?
I want to now.
Good. He said, I want to now, for those who didn't hear. Right? I got a little nervous there because based on all of like the 12 seconds I've known you, you seem like someone who might actually have already done that. So my judgment of you was somewhat correct because you're like curious to try it, right? But for some people, they thought, well, why would I do that? That would be stupid. Why would I order something I don't like, right? People come to Buddhist practice for all kinds of reasons, but they, at a very basic level, are seeking some sort of deeper level of happiness or peace or joy or spiritual path, whatever words you used. Most people don't show up to places like this because everything in their life is perfect and happy and peaceful, right? It's a generalization, and some people maybe you're like everything in your life is great and you just had nothing else to do on a Saturday morning, so you came here. But usually there's something else going on. And that something else is going on is because we spend our entire lives looking at menus, saying, this is what I want. Then we order it, and then it comes to our table. You ever ordered something that wasn't prepared properly? How does that make you feel?
Disappointed.
Disappointed. You ever actually sent something back or complained to the person serving you? Yeah. I was going to go with no because you seem like a nice guy.
Well, some things are inedible.
So, inedible?
Like
What do you like poison?
Chicken? I don't know.
Uncooked chicken. Yes, uncooked chicken sent back. So that's our life, is ordering things from a menu and wanting it to be exactly what we expect. And when we can go beyond that, you'll find a little more joy in your life, because then you just begin to appreciate life as it is, as long as it doesn't get you sick or poison you or kill you, right? So next time you go to a restaurant, figure out your budget. If you want to spend $10, $20, whatever it is, add in your, I'm allergic to this, I'm gluten-free, I'm vegan, whatever it is, which, by the chicken, you're probably not. So whatever it is you want to order, give your parameters to it, and then ask the person serving you to bring you anything on the menu.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, yes. That is the most advanced Buddhist teaching I have, so if you're hoping for more,
That's it.
you don't ever have to come back, Brandon.
I'm done.
You're done. That's it, truly. I saved you a lot of time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. It's been nice meeting you. So with that, we're going to start with a meditation practice, and we'll go from there. A couple things I'll tell you. If you are brand new or maybe sitting for the first time, nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? You're just going to sit, you're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often help slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or on the lap. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, you'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. We'll start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments of your practice. Just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important with this practice is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, steady, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around you or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Imagine going an hour without being disturbed by someone. Some of you will be disturbed before you even leave the building. This practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation, Buddhist practice is not an escape, as often people think it may be. It's direct perception into the present moment, learning to experience things as they are, beyond our senses, beyond our judgments, beyond our critiques of them. Because our judgments and critiques of the present moment do not change the present moment. It simply changes our emotional response. And very often that response is not pleasant. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice free. Sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it does take time. And if you've been at this for many, many years, then congratulations. Keep at it, because it's a challenge. And then if this is day one for you and you're just walking in for the first time to all of this crazy madness, then congratulations. Be patient. It takes time. If our lives are a mess and we're constantly stressed out and dealing with chaos and all kinds of madness, this doesn't fix that. This makes you become aware, truly, of what's creating all of that. So then you can make changes in your life. But if we keep using meditation and Buddhist practice as the thing we're running to fix our lives, then this just becomes another escape. So this practice is really about opening up your mind, your heart to the present moment and learning to embrace things as they are, which is unfortunately what most people have difficulty with. So with that, I'll pause. I really always prefer just to respond to questions, anything around meditation, Buddhist practice. And I'll use the rest of our time this morning to respond to that. And to our millions of YouTube followers, my apologies for not saying good morning earlier. So good morning. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello to each other and share anything you'd like, and I'll do my best to respond there, although at this point in time I can't even see the screen. So thoughts, questions? Yeah.
I'd like to hear you, talk about Buddhism's take on Putin and, I don't know, the hurt that he's causing people.
So the question is, you'd like to hear me speak on Buddhism. I'm just going to repeat your question exactly how I think I heard it. Your question was, you'd like me to speak on Buddhism's view on Putin and the hurt that he's causing people. Correct? Okay. Karen, have you ever hurt anyone? Let the record show her head nodded yes. Have you ever hurt someone very badly?
I hope not.
That my question wasn't whether you hope or not. Have you ever made anyone cry? Have you ever broken somebody's heart? Have you ever lied, cheated, stolen from somebody? Have you ever shattered a part of their life? Have you ever hurt people? Well, maybe Karen hasn't, but I have. And I'm sure I'm the only one in the room that has done that. We have two rules at the Dharma Bum Temple. We don't talk religion, we don't talk politics. But what we do talk about is our behavior and what causes pain. And understanding that, well, let me go back to you. Because I can make this all about you, and then you'll be able to answer your own questions, right? I know, see, that's the problem. You want me. Your question isn't even what is Buddhism's take on it. Your question is what is Jeff's take on it. And Jeff's take on it is Karen. So let's look at when you've hurt people. Why did you hurt someone? Eyes fluttering in massive states of confusion over here for those who can't see.
Yeah, because I'm like trying to process it with Putin in mind.
No, that's not my question.
On me.
Okay, let me back up. Yes.
It's too much to think about.
It's too much to think about, right? You would rather think about the pain that somebody else is causing people and not the pain you've caused people. If you want to understand this practice, you must start with understanding yourself. When you begin to understand why you have caused pain to others, then you can begin to understand potentially why others cause pain.
Well, what I come up with is hurt people hurt people.
Okay. So what you're saying, if I want to rephrase that just to make sure I'm correct, you said hurt people hurt people. So does that mean that when Karen hurt people that she was hurting? I can't speak to somebody else who's not here. I can speak to you who's sitting right here and can explore why you have hurt people. But let me make this easy for you. I spent years hurting people. Why? Because I was greedy, I was angry, and I was ignorant. This in Buddhism is called the three poisons. This is the root cause of all suffering. This is the basics. The advanced teaching, Brandon, was the menu thing. This is the basic teachings, right? Greed, anger, ignorance is the root cause of suffering, right? The Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. The first one is that we all suffer. Most people don't disagree with that. But when you read page 2, you recognize, and it doesn't mean your life sucks. It just means you're going to experience a lot of pain and suffering in your life. Most people get that. The second part is the cause of our suffering. This is the second noble truth. The second noble truth says the cause of our suffering is greed, anger, and ignorance. I spent years of my life so greedy, so angry, and so ignorant. And because I was greedy, and I was angry, and I was ignorant, I caused a lot of pain in people's lives. It's what led me to Buddhist practice. I don't know about all of you, right? But my greed, my anger, my ignorance destroyed people, broke their hearts, crushed them, made them want to die, shattered.
Okay, you can't impose all that on me.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. I know, but my point is, what I'm trying to model for you is I am exploring very honestly and openly why and how I caused pain in people's lives. I could do that with you if you want to open that up, but instead of making you on the spot, that's why I'm talking about me. Right? So the way I overcome greed, anger, and ignorance is to practice compassion, generosity, and wisdom. This is the second noble truth. This is what the Buddha said to overcome suffering, is to practice generosity, compassion, and wisdom. The third noble truth is the ending of suffering nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. And the fourth one is the Eightfold Path. Having correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. It's the way you live your lives, right? So I can't speak to what anybody else does. I can't speak to what Buddhism says about what anybody else does. I can't speak to what the Buddha said about what anybody else does because he died 2,500 years ago. What I can look at honestly is to recognize that with all the love, all the care, all the privilege, all the being spoiled, all the everything that I was raised with, I still treated people like crap. That's what I can relate to. So it is not difficult for me as a practitioner to wonder why other people cause pain. It's really easy. Really easy. Now, understanding why we cause pain and why others cause pain doesn't mean it's, I want to be very clear here for anybody who doesn't know me. I'm not justifying my actions or the actions of others. The question is about why is someone causing pain? And my question for all of you is to ask yourself why you've caused pain in other people's lives. And when you can honestly look at that, publicly or privately, then you can begin to understand, oh yeah, it's actually not that hard to treat people like crap. Have you ever treated people like crap? Too often. It sucks, right? It sucks. It does. So when we can explore that honestly, that's where compassion comes in. It's compassion for all people, including Putin. Because people like that, they suffer tremendously. That's why they do what they do. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it good, doesn't mean I support it. Definitely not a fan. Again, just to clarify to anybody who doesn't know me, hang on. Okay? You're still stuck on other stuff.
No.
So what I want us to understand is before we go critiquing and judging, and I'm not even talking to you anymore, I'm just rambling for the benefit of everybody, right? You know me long enough. When we begin to explore the nature of why we do what we do, it makes it a lot easier to understand and have compassion for the pain caused by others. It's really not that difficult. Greedy, angry people cause tremendous pain and suffering. So the answer, not about one individual, but the answer in Buddhist teachings about why people treat others the way they do is because they're greedy, they're angry, and they're ignorant. Right? And our practice is to recognize our own level. And again, if you're brand new, most people don't like, showing up somewhere for the first time and being like, yo, I just saw some dude and he called me greedy, angry, and ignorant. That stuff sucks. Right? But that's what the Buddha said. The Buddha said, we suffer, we experience sadness, right? Anger, all these types of things, all these emotions because of our cravings and our desires and our attachments. So difficult and so much easier. Forget like global stuff for a minute. So much easier to hate the person who just cut you off while you're driving, or to honk at them, or to give them the middle finger, to be frustrated with them, right? Or the people that serve out food. I'm not saying you hate them, but right, just back to the simple examples. When we order coffee, is it made properly? When we order food, is it made properly? Is everybody on the freeway driving the way we want them to? It's the fundamental things that we get so upset about. I want you to watch today how many little things bother you and trigger you and make you angry. Just watch that. And look at the little things that make you angry. But it's so easy for us to point fingers at everybody else for all the horrific things they're doing, while at the same time we're often justifying in our own ways, well, yeah, but this isn't as bad as that. I'm not suggesting getting angry at ordering coffee is the same thing as killing people. What I'm suggesting you look at is, instead of trying to figure out why people kill people, look at why you're angry at the way your coffee was made. This is the hard stuff. Really, really hard. Yeah.
I guess just the way I'm trying to wrap my head around it, or just trying to come up with some other side to it, but the whole circumstance has also brought out a lot of compassion and helping people, and so I think it's really good to highlight that as well. A lot of those stories are coming out, and that's the goodness of the world.
Yeah, I get what you're doing. I see it, yes. When there are tragedies and people experience trauma and the world faces tremendous loss and pain and suffering, there's always a highlight on the beautiful communities rallying and coming together. That's all wonderful. But I really want you to go back to my first response, the part that you're kind of sweeping under the rug a little bit. That will help your life tremendously if you explore deeply why you hurt other people. It's really hard to do. Instead of trying to figure out why things are going on in other parts of the world, figure out why you hurt people. That will help you answer your own question. Yeah, in the back. Whoever was jumping up and there you go. Yep. Hi.
Hi, it's Kira.
Hi, Kara.
So I want to say I'm so grateful today that this is open and the song is able to gather together. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the words can be like, we can dodge and not want to take ownership or whatever, but I think it's more like the suffering pathway is like, how are my needs getting met? What do I expect other people to do to meet my needs? If they don't do it, what are my responses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not, like, I love the driving piece, but I got a little puppy, and she's wonderful, she's a destroyer, she'll eat everything, she'll take what I love, and she's only doing it out of her deepest needs to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What does she respond to is compassion. So driving, people who don't pick up their dog poop, people who plant cactus and grass together.
Yeah. Hey, that was planted way before we got here. You know I didn't plant the grass or the cactus.
So every day I just try and come back and go, I'm so grateful I'm walking under blue skies and peace.
Yeah.
How can I bring peace to that person instead of being mad at them for not picking up their dog poop? Why not just pick up the dog poop? I don't know what's going on with them. So anyway, 10 weeks of being closed, like, it's been rough, because it is hard to be kind to people when you don't have a community that practices it.
For sure.
So I'm really grateful.
Thanks,
for
Kara.
that, to the lessons of how not to judge.
Yeah, thank you.
How to even just acknowledge my judgment, right? Go, oh, wow. And then not to judge myself.
Mhm.
Stop that, right?
Yeah,
Compassion, opening our hearts. If we don't have it in here, it's not going to be out there. That's my big thing.
mm-hmm. Thanks, Kara. Good to have you back. Yeah, 18 to 24 the last months, we've been closed, so that's not been fun. Yes?
Can you explain what Dharma means?
Yeah, sure. So at the very beginning, when we, what's called taking refuge, and I do the offerings to the Buddha, we take refuge in what's called the triple gem. And I'll walk through all three of them, which will touch on Dharma. The first one is we take refuge in the Buddha. Now, it's important to understand that the Buddha was a human, for those who might not know. He lived 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ. He wasn't a god. He wasn't, anything like that. He was just a dude. He was a prince. He lived sheltered life for 29 years. He snuck out in the middle of the night. He roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years. At 35, he sat down under this tree in Bodh Gaya, India, the Bodhi tree, and he said, I'm not moving until I figure out why we suffer. He figured out suffering, which is the Four Noble Truths I talked about briefly, and then he taught for 45 years, and then he died at 80. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, it's important to understand that we're taking refuge not in him himself. He died a long time ago. He cannot help you, right? But we're taking refuge in what's called bodhicitta, or Buddha nature, and that we all, everybody in this room, regardless of whatever, religion or race or culture or gender identity or sexual orientation or ability, whatever you come from, you're human and you have the ability to awaken, meaning suffer less, right? And so that's what he wanted us to recognize, that we ourselves and only ourselves can figure out how to end or suffer less. Okay? That makes sense on the Buddha? The second thing, the Dharma, which is your question, is that's what he taught. So when he roamed for 45 years teaching, what he taught was called Dharma. Now, Dharma has really two meanings. Dharma, often written with a capital D, is considered ultimate truth. Now, this is a little, not complicated, but a little bit misleading because it sounds as if that means that what the Buddha was speaking is the ultimate truth. And it's not necessarily meant to be interpreted that way. It's to understand that ultimate truth is beyond our words or perception of something. That there's true nature of reality, and then there's our perception of it. So Dharma being ultimate truth is what is the true nature of reality beyond our perception. The other way to look at Dharma is simply everything he taught in Buddhism is referred to as the Dharma. So when people say, I was reading a Dharma book, very simply, it means they were reading a book about Buddhism, and the Dharma is the teachings. When people say, the Dharma, just the way people often use the words, people say the Dharma has really impacted my life. That means the teachings, right? Make sense? And then the third one is the Sangha, and that's the community. So we take refuge in the community of practitioners, and that's like Kira was saying, it's hard every day out there to have people constantly remind you to be nice to people and stop, judging and critiquing and all that on our own, because that's what we've done most of our lives. So Sangha comes together, community comes together to explore the Dharma, Buddhist teachings, and to help us awaken and recognize our Buddha nature. But it's not like, many things in life where you pay, for a 6-week course and all of a sudden you're like done, It's every day just working on being kinder, gentler human beings. And the Dharma, the teachings, help us do that. Make sense? Yeah, for sure. Other questions? Yeah.
In your practice of meditation, you seem really good at, speaking things up and coaching us through, the ideas that pop into our mind, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use the same things when you're doing it by yourself? How do you coach yourself back to breathing, recognizing when your mind is wandering?
Yeah, great question. When I lead, guide meditation, so one, and I always say this at the end, but I never consider myself truly, honestly, as someone who's teaching you how to meditate. What I mean by that is when I sit here with all of you and I start my meditation practice, don't take this the wrong way, but none of you are even here, right? I am doing my meditation practice and I am sharing it out loud. So I don't sit down and think like, okay, here's Brandon, here's Bridget, here's everybody sitting out here. I better guide you all. I better teach you all. I better, help you deal with all your madness. I don't want your madness. I got enough of my own, right? So this is an opportunity for me to practice and do my meditation. My morning today was insane. The amount of things that I had to get done between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. Ridiculous. So I needed this meditation practice as much, if not more, than all of you sitting here. I didn't have a gentle, leisurely morning. I didn't wake up being the guy who runs a Buddhist temple and sip on tea, reading my Buddhist book, waiting for you all to show up and think, oh, I'm going to impart some great wisdom on you. Right? My morning was chaos. So coming back to the actual practice, when I lead you all and I make my offerings, that's for me. When I hit the bell to start, that's for me. When I guide you out loud, that's what I'm doing. Taking 3 deep breaths. When my mind wanders, I'll say, as the mind wanders, recognize it, come back to the breath. So I'm expressing my practice, and there's a slight chance that as I say, if your mind wanders, come back to the breath, that one of your minds might have also wandered, right? So this is my meditation practice. There's no separation between when I'm leading it versus when I'm doing it on my own. In fact, for the 18 to 24 months we were closed, I was sitting here doing it by myself. it was no different. I mean, granted, the little screen camera thing staring at me, but it's still me in an empty room at that time. Exact same thing. So in fact, I always, especially with the college kids, I tell people one of the best ways to learn to practice meditation is actually to learn to lead it, because then you just are reinforcing over and over what I consider really consistent practices. That make sense? Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Always a practitioner, always, For years, we've had people reach out and say, hey, I teach Buddhism. Can I lead at the Dharma Bum Temple? You know what the answer to that is? No. I don't want teachers. I want struggling, failing practitioners who think they have nothing to teach. Now, to be fair, we do bring in monks and nuns and lamas and, great, incredibly wise folks. But when people think they have something to teach, then there immediately is this separation in that person's mind that says, I am above or better or different or something like that. But when we're just unenlightened practitioners sharing together, I think there's a real beauty to that. Yeah. Anything else before we close? Good morning to you all. Yeah, lots of stuff here. We'll table that for next time. There's a question here about when someone is, let's say, consumed by suffering and greedy for others' suffering, ignorance of my awareness, where does evil fit in? Always fun to end a meditation session on the word evil. But let me just, briefly, and we'll close on this, is that we can use whatever words we want to define the actions of people. But words are just these things that add heavy emotion to them. The words that we use to call or describe or define people doesn't change what their actions are. So we can add on whatever label we want to whatever people we think that are doing things that cause others pain. And again, coming back to, because this is all I can truly speak to, and this is even my own illusion and perception of my own experiences, but I could just as easily look at myself and say the actions that I have done in the past were incredibly evil. Very much so. Right? And the practice is to recognize that as we continue to cultivate and work on being kinder, gentler humans, to not judge and critique yourself so much that you start thinking you're a terrible person. It's especially for those who are brand new to Buddhism, because when you hold up a mirror and you begin to look at yourself and you start exploring, well, wait, maybe I am greedy. Maybe I am angry. Maybe I am ignorant. That's not that exciting or fun. Well, this Buddhist stuff sucks. I got to realize what an angry person I am. Do it with some kindness and compassion and recognize that everybody is just human. And some do what we would consider a better job than others at being kind and gentle. And some have, for whatever reasons, zero idea of what we think is kind and gentle. But in their minds, they're doing what they think they need to do, and someone said it, to survive. So All right, with that, we'll close. And sorry I didn't get to all the YouTube stuff, but church bells here are ringing. So we'll join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May any merit gained be transferred to the nearly 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to all of those in Ukraine who suffer at this time, and to those in surrounding areas that suffer pain and loss. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, as I alluded to earlier, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers. We're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different unenlightened folks leading different practices. Schedule's all on the website, but Mondays is Zen practice. I do Tuesdays, Wednesdays. Alex does a loving kindness practice. Travis does Dharma Bum Basics on Thursdays, and then I'm here Saturday morning. We also sit Monday through Friday, 8 and 8:30. There's no class. It's just a silent meditation. So if you want to start your day Monday through Friday, 8 or 8:30, come on in and sit. What else? Yeah, as I alluded to, being closed for 16 months, then we opened for 6, and then we closed again for 2, and we just opened again. It's been a week now. So we're grateful to be open. I really appreciate all of you wearing the masks and still sitting socially distanced as we've set it up. It just allows those who come here to be comfortable showing up. So we really appreciate that. We will stay on the very cautious, conservative side of things. It's great that things are headed in the right direction, hopefully, during this pandemic, but it's by no means done or gone, regardless of what people might think. People are getting sick every day, and a lot of them. So we'll continue to do our best to keep the people here as safe and healthy as possible. Buddha for You, same thing, was closed for 18 months. It's open. So if you need anything, it's there. Also, just to give it a very technical Buddhist side of things, there's a story about, I think it's Devadatta, right, Travis, who tried to kill the Buddha? That was his cousin, correct? Yeah. I'm not a very technical Buddhist-y guy, but there's a story about Devadatta's, the Buddha's cousin who tried to kill him. And he showed him endless compassion, and they became loving, dear friends, because that's what Devadatta needed. So there are lots of Buddhist teachings about that kind of stuff. I just, tend to put them into terms that I think make more sense other than, what he did to his cousin. So thanks all for being here. Be safe, be well. We are, Tom, if you're here, are you all gathering outside? Should I announce that?
Yes.
Yes, Kara. Yes, sorry. Kara, yes, Kara, yes. So every Saturday from 12 to 2, you could stay for 5 minutes. You could stay for 2 hours at any point in time. We do some gardening, some light sweeping and cleaning outside. So anybody wants to stick around for any portion of it and address the cactus and grass issue, you're more than welcome to. So thanks all. Be well.